This is the Team Objection podcast from May 2nd, 2019, episode 389. You can only see one person in Suns garb because Shaun is sick and I've been gone all day, kind of. But it's Sunscast.
Sunscast.
You can guess that with him and me.
Maybe I have a sun shirt underneath. It's purple. It's not a sun shirt.
Like I said, I'm also sick, and I forgot you already said I was sick.
Yeah.
That's kind of probably what the show is.
That'll be a theme.
Like.
Yeah, that's
but
the
I couldn't miss it.
You couldn't miss this one because it's kind of like our end of season recap, looking into next season.
Yeah, recap / in memoriam because the season is dead and lost to us, and
thank God it is.
Now, we could have done this at pretty much any point during the offseason because there's still some unknowns. Who's going to be the head coach? What pick are we going to have in the draft? What free agents are we going to try to sign and fail? But, we figured this is as good a spot as any. We can look back at the roster as it's currently constructed, figure out what moves we might like to make, and then see how none of them come true and we're all disappointed.
This is probably stupid. I feel like doing an end of season recap for the Suns is like literary analysis for If I Did It. What was his book?
O.J. Simpson.
How I would have done it if I did it.
I think it was just called If I Did It.
That's
or Had I Done It or something
what a
like
guy.
That.
But you know what? We're here for that. For the Suns, not for OJ.
No, sorry, OJ. So I think what we should do first is the roster. Then we can look at coach, draft, and what's coming up. But let's break down this roster from last year. Garbage though it might be, we'll fly through some of these names, and we'll focus on a few of the ones that are actually going to be important going forward, and we'll see just how bad this team truly is.
I'm here for it.
I am going to read these off in order of points per game in the 2018-19 season in reverse.
And we have to guess.
I also want to point something out. I think the Suns had 23 players suit up for them at one point or another.
24.
24.
Two of them played one game. One of them played two.
That is...
Ray Parker. Palmer.
Ray Spalding.
Both of those are from different.
Who had one good game. Kind of like Alec Peters.
Yep.
All right, so let's fly through some of these at the bottom. Eric Moreland. Who?
Don't even know who that is.
Played one game.
Okay.
Didn't score.
5 minutes.
Don't know who that is either.
George King. He was a second-round pick.
I remember him.
That's all I remember. He played one game. Juwan Evans.
You got a rebound, though. I have to point that out.
He got one rebound. Juwan Evans. Didn't even average a point a game. Played 7 games. Don't remember him at all.
Good.
And I watched probably almost half the games, at least to some extent. I turned a lot off at the second half, but
no one would blame you either.
No clue who that is.
You value your time.
Quincy Acey, for some reason, was on this team because we had no power forwards.
Isn't he 50 years old?
Get in there.
No, he was born in 1990, so...
But he's effectively 50 years old. He looks 50 years old.
Yes. So, in looking at him, I actually remember him coming out of college being like, hey, this could be a really good player. And he wasn't at all.
He was supposed to have been working on his three-point shot to try and have some kind of NBA relevancy left in his body. He shot 15%. No, 13%, excuse me.
You gave him too much credit. Yeah, I feel like I could do that.
1.5 attempts per game, at which point you're like, maybe stop shooting.
Just do something else.
Because those are all wide open. Not going to miss him. Jimmer Fredette.
Oh, boy.
God.
What a failed experiment that was.
Infamous for stealing Booker's 60.
I mean, he got 6 games worth of run, only 10 minutes per game. I'm not sure we can call it a failure because it was so short, and yet I think we can call it a failure. He shot 27% from the field.
Did he even... I can't really still figure out what the point of signing him was.
It was a splashy move to distract from the fact that we were about to go yet another season of suck. That's all.
Didn't that just re-emphasize the point of how much we suck?
I mean...
Well, he was dominating in China, and I know... Or wherever he was playing.
China,
I know. But, he's a superstar over there. Actually, everybody was like, Jimmer, don't give up your life to come here. You're a god there.
I guess there's no harm in it. I didn't really hate the move, even though it panned out even worse than I expected it to, just because it was kicking the tires just to see. Yeah. What else are you going to do? Again, you're going to play George King? Who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm. It's true. I guess, best case scenario, it's like, hey, he could be a backup point guard. Worst case scenario is what happened.
If I'm not mistaken, we have a team option on him next season. Yes, we do.
I feel like he was not even missing, he was missing bad. Clanking. Not even close.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing something along the lines of that in Booker's 59-point game, him jacking up some air ball towards the end of the game. It's like, All right. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
He did. All right, so I think Dave has the same list up, so I don't know if I can go to him for this trivia. But Shaun, how many games did Tyson Chandler play for us?
15.
Yeah.
I would have guessed like 12. 7.
Okay.
Tyson Chandler played 7 games for us. I don't even know if it's worth talking about him. He's already gone.
I feel like he played really well for the Lakers until he
For 2
died.
games. Yeah, he played well for them for like 3 games maybe, and then his body's like, "Oh yeah, you're old.
Yeah,
Can't do this anymore."
he just can't do it for more than 20 minutes a game at all, and that's a shame. But whatever, we bought him out. I'm sure people were upset because it's a trade asset. Nobody was going to trade for him. Shut
Yeah.
up about that.
Yeah.
Shut up. Ryan Anderson. Also gone, not worth saying much. We kind of already reviewed him before he was traded away, but he only averaged 3.7 points per game in a Suns uniform.
Maybe the most disappointing Sun to come onto this team in the past few years.
This season for sure.
I mean,
Actually,
Josh Childress comes to mind.
I don't know. There's another person a little higher up this list that was really disappointing as well.
Well, we'll see. Because I had high hopes, probably not true, but
Decent hopes?
I thought it was going to be better than what it was. Like, did he hit a 3 this year? I think so, maybe 2.
Yeah, he had a couple.
He seemed like a good fit. We knew about his defensive shortcomings, but he couldn't even shoot. He shot 20% from 3. 20%. 20.
Yeah.
Which, I guess I always wonder when something like that happens, how does someone fall off the map that badly without a major injury or just getting super old? He just turned 30 before last season started.
I don't know.
Like, I mean, he's not that old.
I don't know what happened there.
I'm legitimately confident that there is a chance, and I'm serious, that if you put any one of the 3 of us on the Suns, we would have done better than Ryan Anderson. And I'm really, truly, Chris, me, Dave
I think
in
you
the
had
corner
the best chance.
for a
You had
pocket
the
3.
best chance. You had the best chance because you could play defense a little bit better than we can. But yeah, you take one of the 3 of us like in our absolute prime when we were playing all the time. I mean, we still wouldn't do as good as Ryan Anderson, but
I think there's a chance. He did so bad.
There's
like
a chance
he
it'd be
wasn't
close.
even moving. Yeah.
Like a lot of times people overstate their abilities compared to like the average NBA player. They have no idea how hard it is to get to that level. But watching him on the floor and looking at his numbers from this year, I think it's fair to say in our primes, we could have at least approached those numbers. Those numbers are god awful.
Let me
Yes,
just
they
say,
are.
like, James Harden, like, scares me if I ever had to play like against him. Like, it terrifies me.
He would score 100 points.
Yeah.
So with that said, I think I could play better than Ryan Anderson.
Somebody like Giannis scares the crap out of me.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Ray Spalding's on here. He played 13 games. He
Started 3.
started 3 because we had no power forwards on this roster. He was fine, I guess. I won't miss him.
No, I mean, whatever.
I think we might have a team option on him or something.
Once we get Zion, it won't matter. So
Named after a basketball, so.
Sure. Emmanuel Terry played 2 games. Pass.
Honestly, I don't remember him at all.
No, same thing. It's the same as Eric Moreland. I have no idea who that is. I have no concept. Now we start to get to the interesting ones. We flew past the early ones. Now, to me, these are players that might be around next year with a couple exceptions. The first of them being Dragan Bender.
what will it cost to keep him?
Qualifying offer, right?
That's my question. I can't imagine another team throwing money at him.
I would be fine holding on to him with low expectations.
Would you give him the same deal they gave Allen Williams? 3 years,
Yeah.
like 15 or 16 million, 2 team
What's-
options.
2 team options, yes.
Probably, yeah.
Would you give him 3 years, 12 million guaranteed?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
I would.
I wouldn't.
I still would because he's 21.
Yeah.
On this roster where who's our other power forward? We'll get to them.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be starting. But as a bench player, with some of the flashes he showed, which were still just that, flashes, I thought he played okay the last month and a half. And I hope that's not just me being fooled because we've seen that happen before, Josh Jackson, in the last bit of a lost cause season. But he's 21, and at least there are aspects of his game where I go, he's an NBA player.
So you stole my thunder in that, is because I think that's exactly what it is. That last bit of the season, especially against teams that were, not tanking, but definitely not playing their best towards the end of the season, he can probably put up some not good, but okay numbers against backups. So, I mean, you're guaranteeing $4 million a year. I just want to have options, I guess, is my thing with him. If he plays well, keep him coming, you know?
He fits as a modern 4.
Yeah, he does. If he can shoot, which it's back and forth.
It is back and forth. It was not consistent. He only shot 21% from 3 this year. He shot like 37 from 3 last season. I think the truth is somewhere in between.
Is there? Do they have a stat for how well he shot in the last couple months? Because I'm sure early in the season is dragging his percentage down a lot.
I can probably pull that up, yeah, because I can select for a certain range of games. So give me a moment. Vamp for me.
I don't know. I just looking at him, I just don't know how you can possibly teach anyone to be aggressive. Like, he needs to be.
Well, he's like Goran Dragic. I think there's a chance he's like Goran Dragic.
I don't think he's got that killer instinct in him, that heart in him.
I know, but Dragic didn't either until he got the confidence.
I will say he was showing more of it. Again, is it enough? Is it just a fluke? I don't know. But there were times where you could actually see him drive the ball and then kick it out, drive the ball and finish around the rim in ways he was not doing at all last season. Now it's baby steps. He shot 28% from 3 the last month and change.
So
50% from the field.
So
I mean, in the last month, he put up 6 points, 5 rebounds, a couple assists, almost a steal and a block. They're not huge numbers. His free throw shooting fell off a cliff. He shot like 50% from the line. I don't know. I feel like at least there's upside still there. I'd rather be kicking the tires on Drog and Bender than any of the names that we've said so far.
Yeah.
And a couple more that are still coming up.
So his qualifying offer, I mean, his cap hold next year is only 4-something-ish million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means I guess it really comes down to, he's obviously one that we're going to decide on close to last during free agency. See if he's got any other offers maybe. Because he's a restricted free agent after this year, I believe, right?
Yes, and there's no way anybody's throwing money. Again,
no.
Who's going to throw money at him?
Exactly. So we can really just kind of sit on him until we're done with free agency. But if we have some free agent that's maybe looking at us or has even the thought of coming here, we'll just cut him and call it a day, you know?
Well, I'd like to keep Bender overall, but if that's the last step between signing somebody or trading for somebody, then he's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want him that bad.
Yeah.
Let's lump these two together. They're next to each other in the list, as it turns out, but they're also similar, and I think you only need one of them going forward. Elliot Kobo, DeAnthony Melton.
I think I like Kobo a little bit more, but it's tough because Melton's defensive stats were really good, and if he could develop a bit of a shot, a little bit better ball handling, he could be really good next to Booker because he's got that defensive side to him.
Do we have to choose? Can we keep them both, or is it looking like we're going to have to make a choice?
They're both going to be free agents after this season because both of them were signed to those weird deals where instead of getting like 3 or 4 years out of a second-round pick, they have the option after 2.
Okay.
So we have till after next season, but
was stupid. We blew that with Melton. We could have seemingly, I think we could have signed him a lot sooner and not have to dealt with this whole thing and just had the 2 years of him signed and then the 2-year player option after that. But we didn't.
I think Melton is just straight up a free agent after the second year, and Akobo has some weird options that are, I forget how they work. But
I feel like I'd rather go with Melton. I feel like we have so much of like the undersized point guard. We've run the experiment so many times on this team. It feels like, and I'm tired of it. And it feels like if Melton can already get elite-ish defense, if he can develop just even moderate offense, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and we got them both signed for next year. I mean, they're both counting against our cap next year, so we might as well just kind of keep both of them and see which one plays out for the most part. See if anybody can take a leap.
Yeah, you don't have to get rid of them this minute or anything, but I would honestly be surprised if both are still on the roster at the start of next season. And when you look at their numbers, they are shockingly similar.
Yeah.
Except Melton's a better defender, so to me, I'm fine with keeping Melton, I suppose.
I feel like Akobo's got a better feel for an offense, maybe, but that's not something that's steadfast. That'll always be there, I suppose.
Like, pull up their numbers if you're a Suns fan at all and you're listening. That they're pretty damn close.
I mean, I can run it down real quick.
It's weird.
Melton's 5 points a game versus Akobo's 5.7 points per game. Rebounds is Akobo's 1.8, Melton's 2.7. Assists, Akobo's 2.4, Melton's 3.2. Steals is a little bit where Melton separates himself, 1.4 versus 0.6.
They both shot 39% from the field. They both shot about 30% from three.
I wish there was an advanced stat of like opponents' points or something, because I think his on-the-ball defense was a lot better, Melton's.
Those stats exist. I don't know how to get them quickly.
And it's not necessarily a stat that is like super apparent with steals or in basic statistics.
Yeah. In any case, 2 young point guards that are second-round picks, so whatever. If they don't pan out, whatever. We're not super invested in them. Troy Daniels, I don't know why I was in the team this season to begin with. I thought he carried himself like a professional. He can shoot unlike almost anybody else on this roster.
Yeah.
I don't know what the team's plans are for him or himself, but if we paid him $3 million this year, if he's going to be back for something like that, I wouldn't hate it.
I think I think it all comes down to the team's vision, and I don't think we have the vision right now.
No.
So if that's for whatever scheme we're doing, if he fits into that, that's great, and if he doesn't, send him off. But I feel like we have a bunch of disparate pieces that aren't really building to anything coherent.
Yeah.
And I think he falls into that.
It's just sad because I feel like he could be a good off the bench, give him 15 minutes a game, hit some threes type of thing. I mean, he shot 38% from three this year, 40% for his career. I mean, that's somebody you want on your team, I figure. Maybe not a huge role, but at least somebody who can knock down shots.
It's not entirely clear why Wayne Ellington continues to be a rotation player and Troy Daniels isn't.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'd want the younger guy at least.
So he's not very good defensively. He tries. He's just not very gifted in that area. He doesn't really do much else besides shoot. But I'm with you. I don't know how he's not a rotation guy somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Is it here? Well, like Shaun said, I don't know.
Yeah, probably not.
Isaiah Cannon played 19 games for us.
I feel bad for the guy. He
I
just
do
can't
too.
stay healthy. He had his big shot, and injuries kind of blew it.
I mean, what can you say about him? He wasn't that great for us last year or this year. I was happy that the Suns gave him another chance, but
You can tell how starved for point guards this franchise has been for the last 2 seasons, where in a couple of short flashes, both Isaiah Cannon and Mike James looked like semi-functional players, and we were like, oh my God, this could be it maybe. I don't think we were like thinking he was a star or anything, but you're like, maybe this is something. No, it's not something. He's not an NBA player.
Mm-mm.
Get him out of here. Oh, wait, he's already gone.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. I think the rest of the 10 here are basically the rotation from this year, and they're interesting, except for Trevor Ariza, because I'm not going to skip over him when we get to him. We already talked about him before, and fuck him.
That was the one I mentioned earlier that is probably my biggest disappointment.
I think he's also there. It's just relative to expectations, I don't know. Ariza didn't try. He was kind of a cancer. Ryan Anderson I kind of had hope for. I don't know. They both sucked. Jamal Crawford is here. He's 38, going on 39. We paid him like $2 million this year. If he wanted to come back, and if we didn't have a coach who was hell-bent on playing him 25 minutes a night, would you want him back?
I mean, he scored 50 points. Yeah.
He sure did.
Sure.
I do think, while sometimes the veteran presence thing can be overstated, Jared Dudley, Jason Chandler, I do think there was some value with him. I think he was voted the best locker room guy in the league the year before this. I think there's something to having him around for some mentorship, especially at that price.
Yeah, I think he's somebody that people seem to like, which is a good thing to have, and he can still get hot and shoot. The problem is I just hate the idea of him being a key player on a team going forward, because he is 39. Anytime there's somebody in the league that's older than me, it starts raising questions.
I don't mind that so much as we have young players on the team that we need to develop, and so if we're giving those minutes to someone who I'm being nice when I'm saying he's in the twilight of their career.
It's nighttime. The sun has set.
Sun's going down, big guy. This one's an interesting one to me. I'm curious on your thoughts. Rashawn Holmes.
Love him.
70 games, 4 started, 8 points a game, 5 boards.
I like him. I don't love him, but I think we try to keep him if we can.
I feel like his energy and just overall persona that he brought was a little more important than the stats. Obviously, this is, again, one of those guys that I would love to, kind of like you said with Dragon Bender, love to bring him back. If you could get him on, 3 years, $15 million with the team option in there, I could see that being really nice. I think he's going to get more from somebody else. But the guy he hustled, he played well. I think people liked him. I could see him. He would not be somebody I'd bring back in the idea of if we have somebody else better to sign. But if we've got nobody else to sign, I'd love to bring him back on a relatively cheap contract.
I'm a little bit concerned how often I'm agreeing with Shaun, and I don't know if it's the flu or if we're just simpatico. This and one other player still to come on our list are two of my biggest concerns. I think they're solid for the right price. I'd be happy to have them back. I think people got a little too nuts for them at different points this season. And I think that's partially because, again, we've been so talent-starved that anybody who's actually trying and has some functional NBA skills just looks like, hey, that's a guy we want to have around. And it's because we have had so many players we don't want to have around that feels like a breath of fresh air. I thought he had a good first month and a half and tailed off significantly after that, and it wasn't talked about.
Yeah, it is true. He didn't play in a lot of the games towards the end of the year, granted. Who did play in a lot of the games at the end of the year?
Those were some real piecemeal rosters.
But,
and they won one of those games somehow, and that's what got us in a tie with the Cavaliers.
It's all right. Same percentage as number one. We got the same percentage chance at number one. That's all we care about.
Sure. When we fall to 7, I'll remember that. We only paid him $1.6 million. He's definitely going to get more than that, as was mentioned. I don't know what it takes. If he's about $4 or $5 million a year, sort of like Bender, sure.
That's like, would you go 3 years, 15 mil?
I probably would. I think he has good chemistry with Aiden. You can't play them together. They tried for a couple really short stretches, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
I have so many concerns that we're this far into the roster breakdown, and we're still talking about, like, for a backup, $4 to $5 million, like, that's not bad. It's like, where are our starters?
It's okay. It's ramping up from here on out.
We're getting there. We're getting
No,
close.
I mean, that's kind of going to be the point.
Yeah. So we have 7 left, and the first of those is one of the first-round picks from this year, Mchale Bridges.
Liked what he brought for the most part. Definitely showed some rookie signs. But he was in, I think, the top 5 in the NBA in steals.
Yeah, like defense, incredible. Offense, like not even if my numbers are correct, not even terrible.
No,
just no aggression at all because he only took like 3 shots a game or something crazy.
Literally 7, but considering he played 30 minutes a game, that's not a lot.
Yeah, I mean 33% from 3, which as a rookie, I'm okay with that. You can get a little bit better. I figure he's got to keep working on his threes and just, I don't know how you teach aggression to somebody like that, especially somebody who already did play 4 years in college and maybe doesn't have kind of that youth ramp up period. I mean, he should have come in a little bit more polished, you'd figure.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged well under 10 points, right? Like
8.3.
Yeah. Okay, not as bad as I thought, but that's not going to cut it in 30 minutes, but hopefully the sophomore season he'll get better.
I mean, he's got the defensive side. If he can improve the offensive side, he's still 6'7". He's got long arms. Could be a very good 3-and-D player, and so many teams need that player. So he's definitely got value going forward, I think.
Yeah, and he's obviously on a friendly contract and locked up for multiple years, so that part's not really a concern. He's basically making $4 to $5 million a year until 2021-22.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful.
That being said, if somebody wants him for a good point guard out there, I'd ship him away in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah, I would include him in a trade for Jrue Holiday.
Yeah,
and I like him.
Absolutely.
I do think he needs to get the shooting stroke a little bit better. The word out of college was like he's so silky smooth and it's hard to block his shot, and that was true to some extent. He needs to be making like 37% from 3, not 33.
Yeah.
Because that's going to open up the other aspects of his game. If players have to close out on him, he showed some ability to then drive and kick, but he needs to be a deadly enough shooter that they have to really commit to selling out on him.
Yeah.
And I feel like he can do that. I mean, the curve coming into the NBA is rough, even for guys who do have experience. So I feel like he definitely has a shot at doing that.
I think so. It's certainly way too early to be writing his obituary.
Yeah.
I was pleased with the first season, if maybe a little underwhelmed.
Yeah.
This is maybe the weirdest one on here because it's hard really to say for sure what his impact was, and that's Tyler Johnson. Played 13 games before he was gone for the rest of the year.
I mean, keep him unless we can get an actual freaking point guard. He seemed solid. I liked his energy, and I know we kind of derided energy a little bit earlier. Like, what's the point of energy if you're not seeing impact? But I thought it was kind of like the whole package on a lower level, if that makes sense.
I feel like I'm going to steal Chris's point a little bit about when you're talking about Isaiah Canaan. it was amazing to see what it actually felt like to have an NBA point guard running our offense. And we actually won a few games with him running that before he went down for the year. But I feel like he's that type of guy that if we come in next year and he's our starting point guard, we can write off the season pretty much right away.
I don't necessarily know. It depends who is our 4.
Yeah,
True. If we get Zion, then maybe not.
Or if you sign some power forward, I don't even know who would be impactful enough. But if you plug that hole and Tyler Johnson's the one, maybe it's not great.
I don't feel as confident. I mean, I guess if you get Zion, then maybe all bets are off. Who knows? But he's one that his contract is a player option. He hasn't officially accepted it. He's going to accept it.
He will.
Of $19 million next year. So our only option with him is to A, trade him for somebody who wants an expiring deal. I don't know who's going to want that. Or B, waive him and stretch him, of which we'll owe him, I think, $6 million for the next 3 years.
No way.
Just keep him.
Never stretch him.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different than an expiring contract in that he's actually a functional NBA player, unlike some expiring contracts. Like, he's definitely a rotation guy in the NBA. Is he a starter? Is he a starting point guard?
I mean, is there a possibility that we would waive and stretch him in the sense that if we had a chance to sign somebody and that was our difference?
Sure.
I guess I figured you'd trade him away with a draft pick or something.
But you do that like reaction. It's a reaction to something else, not just like this is our plan.
Yeah, you don't clear space for Tyson Chandler and LaMarcus Aldridge, sign Chandler and then not get Aldridge.
Yeah.
Just to name a hypothetical example.
Yeah.
And then piss off one of your Morris twins at the same time.
Oh, no, not the Morris twins. The powder kegs are coming up. Josh Jackson is next. Averaged 11.5 a game. Shot 41% from the field.
I'm real concerned about him because Dave brought up the point of Dragon Bender kind of coming on at the end of the season when it kind of didn't matter anymore. And that's what Jackson has done now for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really concerning about Jackson is he did it last year and we had all these hopes and he nose dived and then did it again this year. So like, I'm not seeing any reason why I should think the pattern is going to be broken next year.
It's so hard to watch him because you can see the talent there. I really think you can see the talent is there. He's got aggressiveness. He's got seemingly a decent shot that's not broken. But then he goes and shoots 67% from the free throw line this year.
Yeah, because his IQ is in the toilet.
It's just so sad because you can see the talent there, but I don't understand how somebody is just that clueless at times.
And that's the problem for me is like you said, you can't teach aggressiveness, and I think you can't. Well, I think it's confidence. A player who's not aggressive can gain that confidence. Yeah, IQ. I can't think of many examples where a player came in low IQ and got it together. I don't know.
I don't want to be a Josh Jackson defender. I really don't. And I'm just saying that. I don't know if it's an IQ issue. I think he's either too confident or too aggressive sometimes. And I can't help but wonder if he had been in any meaningful system at any point in his career so far, if some of those bad habits wouldn't have been learned. He is about to, whoever the Suns hire in the next couple of weeks will be his 4th head coach in 2 years.
Sure. That's
now,
true.
I don't know if that's enough. Those faults could be entirely on him. I have a hard time writing him off, and yet I don't know if I want him around. As a person who's just offended him, I'm like, God, I just don't know.
With that said, I'm concerned about him. I don't think I'm ready to give up on the experiment yet.
He's also 21.
Yeah. But he just turned 22 a couple months ago. Still, regardless, he's going into the season at 22.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to throw in the towel. I am. I would be lying if I said I wasn't concerned and not optimistic.
Again, he's one that we don't even have to worry about him necessarily. He's coming back for next year unless he's a part of a trade. I mean, he's under contract. He's under a favorable contract for next year. So we've got one more year to see what he's got. Unless, of course, we throw him in a package for Jrue Holiday, because I would do that in a heartbeat as well.
If you notice us keep talking about Jrue Holiday, it's because it's the pipe dream.
It is a pipe dream.
It's not going to happen unless the Pelicans blow it the hell up. Yeah, that's the concern I have. Is he's basically the 3rd most wanted small forward to me, even as somebody who kind of is interested in him still. That's not a good look.
Yeah.
Deandre Aiden, 16.3 points per game, 10.3 rebounds per game, averaged a double-double as a rookie, 58%, almost 59% from the field, 75% from the free throw line, which is really good for a big.
I have this nagging feeling about Aiden. So, like, I like him, and I like what he does, and I think if it had been a different year, he had a really good chance of being Rookie of the Year. The fact that we took, not saying it was the wrong draft choice, I'm not hopping on that wagon, but the fact that we took a center in today's NBA is like just I have this nagging feeling about it, and how the NBA, I keep thinking, well, it might course correct a little bit. Everything's going to the outside so much that the correction might be that it opens up the inside again for players like Aiden, and it hasn't really gone that way. So
here's the thing. I think all of us are a little bit affected by the success Luka Doncic had. If Doncic would have came out the year before, if he was a rookie this year, and Aiden, if Aiden was fighting for the Rookie of the Year and it wasn't a no-brainer that Doncic was going to win it, I feel like we'd be way more hyped for him. Or had we won more than 19 games last year, we'd all be more hyped for him. But as Chris said, 75% from the line, averaged a double-double. Yeah. The guy's got talent. And he's not a plodding center from the late 90s who can't shoot anywhere past 3 feet from the hoop. The guy can knock down shots. I think he will develop a three-point shot eventually. I think the guy's got a lot of potential. And I know you guys aren't doing it, but I think there's a lot of Suns fans who have really kind of shit on him for really bad reasons.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I am conflicted on Deandre Aiden. I'm pleased with his rookie season. I think his game is relatively well future-proofed. I don't know, and this is kind of the problem with several of the players on this list, how much of this is he was not in the right system to succeed, and how much of this is does he have the aggressiveness required to succeed? Because there will definitely be a place in the NBA going forward where a player of his size and strength and footwork can dominate smaller opponents in the post when teams go small and still keep up with them defensively. And I thought his defensive progress throughout the year was actually not given enough credit.
That was cool, and especially in that run before everything, we lost. Well, we lost so many. We were like coming alive, and then we had like 3 major injuries, and it was like, well, let's just write this season off. But his defense on like Giannis, and they put him on somebody else in
LeBron.
Yep,
he played well,
big time defense, and I think he rose to the challenge, and I think that was part of why he thrived.
As a rookie against 2 annual MVP candidates.
Yeah.
And that was just 1 game apiece, but still, it was almost the whole game.
And I think the coaching staff's mentality was, we don't want him shooting threes yet. We want him practicing dominating on the inside first. Mm-hmm. I don't agree. I don't agree that was the right move. I don't want him exclusively shooting threes, but I think it's something that he's going to need to do in his career. Why not just get started, especially on a season that, I mean, we didn't know it at the beginning, but it was a lost season. Why not practice?
Because I feel like they didn't want him to do that because they didn't want him developing a bad habit to start, and they wanted to focus on his strengths first and then move out. I think had the season not gotten lost as bad as it did, and or maybe if he played the last 10 games of the year, then we might have seen him try to step out a little bit more. But I still think I've seen, I mean, I guess you see a lot of people in practice, but I've seen Aiden in practice, videos of him knocking down a bunch of shots, people talking about him shooting threes a lot in practice. I think it's one of those things that might be uncorked a little bit next year. And I think the way the NBA has gone with players like Giannis, with players like Joel Embiid, really tall guys who are really versatile, having Aiden have the ability to defend them on the perimeter and down low is going to be huge for us going forward.
I think so. I agree. I just think you can shoot threes. Allegedly, I believe you. I don't see any reason why in key matchups or certain plays you get him out shooting threes.
Yeah, especially towards the
even
end
in
of
the first year. Like, you don't want bad habits, but like you don't do it at all. And I'm thinking like Jokic. I'm thinking Joel Embiid, and it's like that's the mold that
Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis. Yeah. You know what frustrates me? I think some fans got a little bit too fixated on this, but there is definitely some truth to the fact that he averaged 16 points per game when the main function he had in the offense was dribble handoffs on the elbows and setting screens outside the three-point line.
Mm-hmm.
They very rarely ran plays for him, and when they did, he generally performed pretty well. And a lot of people were screaming for him to get more than 12 shots a game.
See, this is why I'm okay with the firing. I think we're going to get to that at the very end, but like... it sucks for consistency, but I found myself agreeing with James Jones, like, we're not going to do something just for consistency's sake. We want to make the best moves for the team. Anyways, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah. It's okay.
And I think if we had a point guard who could throw him in entry pass, that would have really helped the situation.
Sure. Yeah.
But, I mean, just still, again, this not having a point guard, I think, skews so much on this team, especially with Igor, because I think it could have been a very important part of his offense, because I feel like Igor can't put together a good offense, and I feel like he's going to get another job really soon in this league, just not as a head coach.
Yeah,
so
as an assistant.
And I think not having a point guard just kind of taints everything we think about the young guys.
There are two huge numbers that stand out to me, one of which is a player we haven't gotten to yet. Josh Jackson averaged 2.2 turnovers a game this year, which is abysmal. But then I remember he was playing backup point guard for a while, and again, the question is, if he had a functional NBA point guard in this roster, how much better would a guy like Josh Jackson look?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We have no idea. It might not even make a difference, but we have no way of knowing, and that's very frustrating to me.
Yep.
Kelly Oubre was third in scoring in his limited time with the Suns, played 40 games with us, started only 12, but of course he was one of the linchpins of when we did have success. We had a stretch where we were 7-3, guys. We were 12-60 the rest of the season, but we were 7-3 in that 10-game stretch. 17 points a game, 5 rebounds, 1.4 steals, which is pretty good, very low assists. Shot 45% from the field, 33% from 3.
Hashtag Valley Boys.
Yeah, go ahead, Shaun.
He's the third most important person on this team, in my opinion, right now. Even if his numbers were inflated a little bit for whatever reason, even if it's just, some guys can turn on for a few games and it's really all he had to do. What would it look like over the course of the season? Who knows? But the energy, the defense, the focus on camaraderie and wanting to be here, like, he had all of those things. And, the scoring and offense, what a nice bonus to that.
I feel like I am trying so hard to temper my expectations with him. I am so hard trying to be like, hey, there's a lot of holes in his game still. But, man, I just hear his name and I get excited because he brings so much energy. He brings so much positivity to the entire culture, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is how much is he going to command on the open market, and what are we going to have to sign him for? Because it could be a lot, and if it gets up over $16 million a year,
I don't know that I care right now. So this whole thing where, like, we don't want to sign too much, we need to make sure we maintain our cap space. It's like, for what? For who? If there are any free agents, they don't want to come here. So what does it even matter? I'd say sign. I mean, don't go crazy. If he commands like something ridiculous, yeah, okay, we don't go there. But if it's a couple mil more than we were expecting, so what? I feel like he proved it.
Let me just ask you another pop quiz, because why not? It's fun, right?
Yeah. I mean,
what did the Phoenix Suns as a team shoot from three-point land in 2018-19?
29%.
That was my guess, so now I'm going to say it because that's what I was thinking.
It was worse than the league. It was not that bad. It's 32.9%.
Damn.
As a team, we shot 33% from 3.
That's terrible.
Which Oubre is right about in line with.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, and this can't be answered until we know what the hell is happening with the draft pick and free agency, is without the right point guard and or power forward, I'm actually kind of concerned about Oubre's fit with Booker and Ayton going forward. If you consider him an integral part of the team going forward, and I can see why you might, you have to be building around the three of them with those thoughts in mind. You have to have a floor spacing 4, and or Ayton has to develop his 3, and you have to have a point guard who can actually make a goddamn three-pointer every once in a while.
Yeah.
And or pass. That sounds unreasonable, I know. I'm a little bit worried about his numbers. I'm a little bit worried about his defense. I think his on-ball defense is overrated. I think his off-ball and team and help defense is all very good, and I don't think his defense is bad on-ball overall, but I did not watch him and think to myself, that's a shutdown defender. I don't think he's that at all.
I would agree with that.
So that's my only concerns. It's not even a question like, do I want him back? I absolutely do too, because as you mentioned, having somebody who wants to be here is so rare these days that I'm willing to pay a premium for it. And if some team offers him 4 years, $86 million, I don't know.
I know. And the problem with that is going to be, honestly, for me, it's when the team offers that to him because of the way that the restricted free agency works. We have if he signs that tender offer, we have 3 days in which to match, in which our cap space is tied up for those 3 days. So if we want to make any other sort of move, we got to figure this out quickly. What we're going to do with them.
Well, I mean, like, what else? I mean, I guess I don't know. There's a part of me. It's like, what are we worried about at this point? Even what I think Chris raises very legitimate questions.
Mm-hmm.
But like to me, it's not like making a choice. Do we go for Kelly or do we go for somebody else? It's like what else is there? What else is tying it up? Maybe something we don't know yet. But
his cap hold is $10 million. So if we have any hope of signing any big name free agent, which is not going to happen anyway, so it doesn't kind of a moot point, we'd pretty much have to. I mean, pretty much we have to renounce his cap hold, I think.
I mean, maybe it's worth it just for the sake of this conversation. What are some big name free agents this year?
I mean,
there's a lot of them.
Kyrie and Kevin Durant are not coming here.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're basically going to the next tier after that. If for some dumb reason, I don't know why he would after years of languishing away in Charlotte, Kemba Walker wanted to come here, I would probably rather have him than Kelly Oubre.
I would too.
Even knowing that's going to cost us more. I mean, like all things being relative, I still would probably want Kemba more.
He's an NBA point guard. Yeah, I'd love to have him here.
Actually, don't even know necessarily. How old is Kemba?
29.
I was 28.
Okay.
28.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So
I probably would do that then, just because the hole is so gaping for us.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, who's going to come here that's better than Kelly Oubre? And I don't know if the answer is anyone. Here's the other ones that are on this list, by the way. Kawhi, not coming here.
Not coming.
No.
KD mentioned. Kyrie mentioned. Kemba mentioned. Klay Thompson, not coming here.
Coming.
Jimmy Butler, not coming here.
DeMarcus
Tobias
Cousins,
Harris. Tobias Harris could be a decent fit. Don't know why he'd come here.
That's really my only one where I'd be like, okay, let's start breaking this down and figure out how we can get him here.
I can actually see. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying the other guys, obviously, as we said, aren't coming here. Nikola Vucevic would be an interesting one since he's a free agent as well.
Can't play him with Aiden.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the problem.
Well,
I like Vucevic a lot.
I can see. I don't know why, but I can see a realm of possibility where like Klay. Even then, though, would you run Klay and Booker?
I works next to Booker fine. You play him with
you'd probably try it, yeah.
Yeah.
I would have no qualms whatsoever playing that. In fact, it helps cover up some of Booker's weaknesses.
My thing is, if Klay leaves, I could see like a chance that he would come here. I don't think he's leaving.
No.
Yeah.
So that's the big issue there. Like I would bet heavily he's staying with Golden State.
The only other one I can think of free agent wise that maybe I'd be willing to drop Oubre for is, God, now I'm blanking on D'Angelo Russell.
Who's restricted?
I thought he was unrestricted. I'm sorry.
And why would he come here either?
Okay.
Like he had a lot
Booker.
of.
Yeah.
Him and Booker are like besties. That's the one thing that does make it a little bit more likely than some of the other names on this list.
Well, this list lied to me because he says unrestricted free agent, so this list lied to me.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's coming off his rookie deal. I don't know why he wouldn't be. I don't think there's any weird poison pills in his contract.
Yeah.
I don't know how that. I mean, that would be a cool backcourt. I think it's terrible defensively.
Yeah, it'd be explosive offensively.
It really would. It would take a lot of the pressure off of Booker, but I don't imagine that being a thing unless they're really sold on Karis LeVert being the future of that franchise, and they're more convinced that they'd rather have Dinwiddie than D'Angelo Russell. But he was an all-star. I have a hard time imagining that happening. Mm-hmm. One other name on this list, since we're talking about it before we move on to the last two, I am at the point now where I actually would maybe sign DeMarcus Cousins, and that sentence wounds me a lot, and I know he's coming off another pretty bad injury, so it's huge question marks, but considering you might be able to get an all-star caliber player on a discount, and I think he's gotten a little more mellow as he's gotten older, not like Carmelo, but like, calm.
Whew,
I might take a chance on him. I know he's another center, but I could actually see him and Ayton coexisting. Am I crazy?
I don't.
What's Cousins from 3? Not this past season, but in the past.
I'll look.
I can see why you would be open to it. I don't think we can. I think his attitude, even though he has mellowed out, it seems like we're gonna need some pretty patient players. I think we're in the rebuilding. Like he's mellowed out with Golden State. Like they're there. They're great. They have their culture for the most part figured out. They have some drama, but I also think they kind of did something somewhat similar. If Ayton is a Anthony Davis light, and it went okay. It didn't go that great for the Pelicans. So I don't
It's
know. If
hard
the
to
money's
say.
right, I guess.
Yeah.
If the money's right, sure. But
He shot before the season. He shot 35% from three, 36% from three, 36% from three
Okay.
on
All
about
right.
5 attempts per game,
He could be worse.
and 5 assists per game. I mean, he's got a
Yeah.
handle. He can pass. So that's why
Yeah.
it'd be a little weird against some teams, especially teams that went small, like the Pelicans had trouble with. But I don't know if there's somebody. If we're gonna spend like $20 million a year on somebody, because he's gonna have to take a discount. You could pay him a decent chunk of money just hoping he's going to be healthy and then see, but I don't know.
I also have that issue. I know, Chris, you're one who's like, when Chris Paul gets hurt, you're like, honestly, that's what you get for taking, I mean, not that's what you get, like you deserve it, but like that's the inherent risk. And so when it happens and you act shocked, it's like, why? You knew that he's injury prone, and that's a concern I would have with Cousins big time. He took all season to come out for Golden State, and then turns around and gets hurt again for the rest of the playoffs.
We don't need a Band-Aid right now. We need to fix all the systemic wounds that this franchise has. If we did, I can't imagine signing a better power forward, and he's not even a power forward.
Yeah, right.
Which is sad. It's a really bad power forward class. Like, what's the best?
If
Julius
he
Randle?
could stay healthy, that would be kind of a game changer for this team.
Well, especially if we end up getting the number 2 pick and get John Morant and then sign somebody like Cousins.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that could work.
And I took us far afield with that, so my apologies.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that when he got hurt. I'm like, I could maybe want him. I can't believe I'm saying that. It hurts. TJ Warren
Hold on, before you move on, I want to ask one last question to you guys about Kelly. What is the most you're willing to go? What is the highest you're willing to go to sign Oubre for?
I would love to sign him for $15 million a year. I don't think it's going to come that cheap.
That's why I'm wondering what's the highest you're willing to go, because I agree, $15 million a year, great, sounds good.
I think I would be on the high side of most Suns fans when I say 80, but I would cringe.
Man.
I'm not going more than $20 million a year. There's just not that much money available in this free agency period.
I would probably say 20. But then if they say 21, it's like one more than my math. I would consider it, but like I would really like 20.
Yeah.
And one of the things that turned off Eric Bledsoe from this franchise was messing around with basically $1 million a year for 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, if it's 84, I'm pretty sad about it. Pretty sad, but I'd probably still do it.
Yeah.
Because he's 23. Like, who are you going to find that's better?
Mm-hmm. I hope that we've already been having these conversations with him. Like, we've got to not hold this off and be like, well, we'll see what happens, see what he gets offered. No, I think we've got to really figure out this market value quickly and be discussing this going into free agency.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you can offer an extension and just avoid all restricted free agency. Even at this point,
I think so.
I think as you go back into the offseason now, that window reopens. You have to do it before like October or something when the season starts, but I think that's still an option in the offseason. I'm not positive.
I don't know if it is, but I know we can discuss it with him at the very least and have the handshake deal.
Yeah, you can make arrangements.
So I'm done with TJ Warren. I really am, because even before he got hurt again, I was thinking, the offense is fine. It's decent. The defense is so atrocious. And I mean, the offense is like, you give him the ball, he can do all right with it. He doesn't pass. Like, how many assists did he average last year?
1.5 in 32 minutes.
Yeah, that's horrible.
For as often as the ball was in his hands, you bet.
And like, I remember this, and even the eye test. I remember so many times he was on a fast break, easy outlet pass, and he took it himself. And sometimes he scored still, other times he didn't, but he never wanted to pass. For a player who is kind of selfish, doesn't play any defense at all, and is like, all right, he's not a world breaker on offense. Like, why? We're done.
It's so sad for me because we had 2 big complaints about TJ Warren last year going into this past season. He can't shoot threes, and he's not a good defender. He fixed one of those. He fixed it completely.
But then we saw in my head, in my mind, he fixed it, and we saw how much it still like really didn't matter.
It's
like,
true,
it was fine. He scored a little bit more now than he did before, and it had no like tangible impact. Like, I'm sure if you looked at his win shares or something, they did not really go up.
And I completely 100% agree with you. I am so done with him. He seems like a really solid, nice player who can put up points off the bench for some contender. And he's actually on a pretty friendly deal overall. And What can we get for him?
Now, especially because it's not like he is a point guard, a position of need now. It's so, trade him. Trade him while his value is high. I don't think it is that high anymore.
It's not that high anymore at all.
Yeah, so you wanted the advanced stats. I'll hit you with them. He was worth 2.1 win shares this past season. That's down from the last 2 seasons.
What's the average? What's the league average just for?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd guess around 2 to 3.
Okay.
1.6 that 2.1 was offensive. If you go by O and BPM, what is that again? Hold on. Oh yeah, box plus minus. Right. He was a negative defensively. It was a 0.1 in the positive on offense and a negative 1.8 on defense, which I assume is among the league's worst. His value over replacement player was 0.1.
There was a time when he and Booker had like the worst defensive, differential or whatever it is together in the league, in the entire league. And Booker makes up for it. And I think part of the reason Booker was so bad on defense was because of what we were asking from him on offense. Point guard duties, scoring duties, do everything. And so you're taking someone who's not a great defender and then you're making him use all of his energy on offense. TJ Warren, we don't have that excuse. I feel bad for being so numbers, he's a person too, but it's not
tough.
worth it.
I can't really argue with a whole lot of what you guys said. I do think he has a place as a 6th man in this league. I think he thinks of himself as a starter. He's getting paid starter money. But to me, I'm like, why couldn't he do what Jamal Crawford did in his prime? He can't pass as well as Crawford, but he shot 59% from the field and 49% from the field and 43% from 3 this year. Scored 18 points a game, made it look pretty effortless. Contributed virtually nothing else, including bad rebounding for his position too, but he's an NBA player. He's definitely a rotation guy, even on a good team. I think I'm kind of done with him too. I think he could use a fresh start.
Yeah, again, I feel sad about that. I really do.
Yeah. He's the 4th most wanted small forward, though.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Bridges and Oubre are up there, and then Jackson, and then Warren. And that's not going to fly because none of the 4 of those can really play power forward in short stretches. And they can't play shooting guard either.
Yep.
Speaking of shooting guards, there's not even a lot to say about this guy. Devin Booker. I love him. I don't care that he's going to make $35 million this season. He's earned it.
Yeah.
I mean, on this shit show of a team, yeah, he absolutely has earned it. I keep hearing these whispers of how Devin Booker is going to demand a trade in a couple of years, and we better hope that he still wants to stay here, and all these things. This guy's the face of the franchise. He's 22. We can't hope for anything more from this guy.
Counter argument: Kristaps Porzingis.
I mean,
how old's Kristaps Porzingis?
21, I think.
Face of the franchise, New York, no less.
Injury.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they have this pipe dream that they're going to get KD and Kyrie this summer.
I don't necessarily agree that the face of the franchise is conflated with not wanting to leave, Dave. I think you're being very optimistic. I almost wouldn't even fault Devin Booker. I just pray every night he has better patience than I would. The franchise, other than paying him, has done him wrong in every aspect. And yet, for all we can tell, he's optimistic. He wants to stay. I love you, buddy. So, yeah, I mean, I love the guy. I mean, what more could you ask for him? Maybe a little bit better defense. Well, maybe when he's not being asked to do everything else under the sun, he can focus on that a little bit. Elite scorer, good passer. I mean, he's great.
Yeah, I mean, he showed flashes that he can handle the point, but he's definitely not the Harden type, and I don't want him doing it. I don't think that's where we utilize his strengths the best. So, again, I keep hammering this home. NBA caliber point guard, I think, is going to help him so much more.
And I just think it's not even a fair comparison because Harden has functional NBA players around him. So, like Devin Booker, it's like he's passing like 4 cardboard cutouts. It's like, what are you going to do? And not only are they not scoring when he passes them the ball, they demand none of the defense's attention. So everyone can focus on Booker. That makes it really hard to be a Harden player.
He gets compared to Harden a lot. It's valid in some ways and not in others. The one thing about Harden, of course, is before they signed or traded for, technically, Chris Paul, remember what happened to Harden in the playoffs that season where he won the MVP?
Wouldn't have been
He
Flames.
died against the Spurs.
Yeah.
They killed him.
Yeah.
For 3 months, he was dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because he didn't have anybody else who could handle the rock around him. Even though they surrounded him with other ideal players for his style, like, functioning Ryan Anderson, for example, or an Eric Gordon, they had no other primary ball handler. And so all the responsibility was on him, and it never lasted through the playoffs.
See, and that's why I actually think Booker could be a Harden-esque player because he would probably handle the ball a lot still, even if we had a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
He just can't be the primary ball handler with no one to pass to.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they just trap him, and by the time whoever he passes to out of the trap can make a meaningful basketball play, the defense is recovered.
Mm-hmm.
And that just takes it out of him for a whole game.
And I shouldn't, to being fair to Booker, I'm sorry, Aiden, but that's tough. So you have two people on offense the defense has to pay attention to, and making good interior passes, not just feeding him the ball when he's posting up, but like a pick and roll and hitting him on the cut. That's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where he was playing with god-awful lineups.
Oh, yeah.
Just awful. Like when it's Josh Jackson and Ray Spalding and Rashawn Holmes and who the hell cares at the fifth spot? Like, what are defenses going to pay attention to any of those people for? How are you going to get floor spacing?
I'm going to look at this box score of the last game he played, the last full game he played.
It was bad.
The starters he played with he played 35 minutes against the Cavs. This is the last full game Booker played this past season. He scored 25 points. He played with Elliot Kobo as a starter, Mchale Bridges, Dragan Bender, and Rashawn Holmes as his starting lineup.
That's so bad.
There's no shooting. There's no offensive creation whatsoever. There's nothing there. And he put up these kind of numbers.
There's not even another starter in there, which is like obvious. That's not even an entirely like second tier roster.
Mm-mm.
That's like some third string in there.
No, there's a lot of really good, fine backups.
It was fun watching him go crazy. And I saw people like, I wish you'd play more team basketball. I'm like, this is not a basketball team.
It's just
Exactly.
Shut up.
That stretch that he had where he had 50 points. I think he had 50 in 3 games in a row, was it?
Yeah. Well,
close to. He had
close
48,
to. He
that's
averaged 50 over 3 games.
Yeah. That stretch was fun. They lost all 3, and people were giving him shit for losing again. Especially like the 59-point game. He shot 55% from the field.
He was so efficient. I know.
He was so good.
I
The
know.
50-point game against Washington, he shot 65% from the field. And again against Memphis, where he scored 48, he shot 65% from the field.
Yep.
And 50% from 3 in that game.
I'm in a basketball class where sometimes you get people who like don't play a lot. So sometimes they'll be in a fast break, and I'll be like, I could make a pass, and that person would be somewhat open.
Mm-hmm.
But I much more trust myself covered to make this layup than I do dumping it off to this person. Mm-hmm. And I have to imagine that's what Booker felt like for most of the season. I could make this pass, but then even though the corner player's open, but they're just going to clang it off the backboard. So the percentage is much better for me to do it.
I love the image of you saying he's sitting in the corner and he's still going to clang it off the backboard,
Yeah.
shooting a corner 3.
Kind of, yeah.
Right off the top.
Again, some of the Suns on this roster shot 20% from 3, so it's possible. The only red flag to me is the 3-point shooting percentage. It had gone up consistently his first 3 seasons, and it plummeted to his lowest of his career this year. And even despite that, his field goal percentage went up 3%. So it shows you how much he worked on his internal game. You could see him working on his post game and his ISO stuff in the offseason. That paid dividends. Hopefully having a functioning point guard on the roster would mean he wouldn't have to take so many pull-ups and could actually be catch and shoot more.
For all the concerns I have about like Aiden and some other players that we talked about, I actually have less for Booker because of how much was like pull-up threes, forced threes, and he was hurt for so long, and he was not able to take the time he needed to recover because of all the demands from the team.
I just hope we can start winning a few more games every year to get into a respectable 7th, 8th, 9th seed area, so people can stop pointing at his record as win-loss record as the reason why he's not a good player.
I mean, we need to make the playoffs this year, and I know that's
Is it a pipe dream?
kind of to go. What would it take now? At least a 25-game win increase.
It would take basically a turnaround akin to what the Suns did when they added Nash.
Yeah.
It would have to be like 30-plus games probably.
I think we have a chance just because we performed so under where we should have this year. But yeah, I know it's asking a lot, but I just think a decade with no playoffs, we are squandering Devin Booker's career. We have to.
we're squandering his career, and this may be a little bit more, above the team itself. I think we're squandering a generation of Phoenix fans.
Sure.
It sucks in the sense that Phoenix has grown exponentially since the 2000s. And in the early 2000s, we had Nash and Amari and Shaun Marion. We had a bunch of kids who probably latched onto the Suns. But I know how kids are, how young fans are, where they like the cool new hot thing. And there's 15-year-old kids who have no idea that the Suns were good at any time in their life.
Maisie does not know the Suns as anything but a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2013.
Yeah.
When I started introducing her, they've not been anything but horrible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm lucky. I've known Courtney long enough that she at least got to watch the Nash years with me. But since then, it's been horrible. It's just almost impossible to watch. And I think, and this is me being selfish, but I think about my kids and how much I want them to enjoy basketball the same way I did. And I don't know how I'm going to sell them on this piece of shit team that I've been watching for the last 10 years.
The only thing that brings me makes me feel a little bit better is I'm feeling like the Suns are now like the Kings, like they're like the joke of the NBA. Mm-hmm. And that's really disheartening, except it's a stigma that I've shown, that has been shown to me this year from the Brooklyn Nets and the Kings, that you're the joke until you're not. It can be 1 year and you start to put it together and you have shed that stigma, and we just need that 1 year. Like, we can do it, and we won't be the bottom, the seller anymore.
Other than constantly talking about trust the process, it's been 2 full seasons now since the 76ers have been a joke. Does anybody even think about it anymore?
No,
not really.
Other than the fact that it got them the roster as it's currently constructed, so those years paid off in this, but like that feels like forever ago.
And how many times did they win the lottery? I mean, the amount of times they got in the top 3 for their picks is kind of stupidly lucky. So I can't even compare that.
Yeah,
but the point is, they were the ultimate joke. Mm-hmm. I mean, Philadelphia was not. I mean, they were like all-time bad.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like they're good. My dad thought they were a contender. I disagree heavily, but yeah. I mean, you don't think of them as the joke anymore. Mm-hmm. So we have faith. We have a chance. We just need to not be bad anymore. That's all.
The one thing that gives me some hope is just Booker in general, obviously, because it's all we have, and Aiden.
Yeah.
But I know people are worried about his extension, and it's pricey for the next 5 years. He'll still pretty much be entering his athletic prime when it's done.
Mm-hmm.
The version of Devin Booker we've seen today should only get better as we go. Maybe it's only a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure how much better he can be. But we're going to be paying for the right part of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Now the key is to surround him with literally anything and see what happens.
Yep.
Head coaching-wise, we talked about I don't know if any of us expected Igor to get fired, but he did. The rumors are maybe Monty Williams, who hasn't coached since he was the head coach of the Pelicans. He's an assistant for the Sixers right now. There are other rumors, like other teams' unwanted assistant coaches, which I swear to God, we better not do again. We've basically hired nobody with coaching experience in the last 15 years. And that includes Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni coached the Nuggets for, I think, 20 games. So technically he had been a head coach before he came here. But Robert Sarver has never paid for a head coach, ever, and it's time to stop.
So how much, the only thing that I think the organization might point to is the fact that we're kind of paying 3 head coaches coming up, right? Because we still will owe money to Koskov from his previous deal, and we probably owe money to Earl Watson.
Yeah, one more season yet.
Well, whatever. Yeah. The point stands, and I think you do make a good point. We need that experience, and you saw it. Sometimes people in the NBA are like, what difference does a head coach actually make? The players are the players, and they're going to do what they're going to do. And it's like, no, maybe it's not like high school or even college, but the head coach still makes a huge difference on a team, and we've seen that. If you don't think that's the case, Exhibit A, our whole team last year. And people are saying Kokoshkov, good X's and O's, horrible communicator, low energy. It's like these things matter.
Yeah, and I think that's the quality of the head coach. That is why it is such a demanding, unique job. Because Kokoshkov, like I said, X and O's, I think he was really good X's and O's and has been for years. I mean, he was a Suns assistant years ago. But the fact that I think nobody felt like he had their back. I mean, it took him 75 games to get a technical foul. This was after game after game complaining that we got no respect from the refs whatsoever. It took 75 games for you to get a technical foul. I don't care what you're arguing about. Argue about something. Get thrown out one game. It's not going to matter in the win-loss record.
Right.
You can spark things sometimes that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I get maybe that's not his personality.
It's not, I know, and I get that. It's not mine. I don't think that would be my personality either, but you got to make it your personality. In that sense.
When I worked as a server, it's not my personality to be like super outgoing and friendly to strangers, but guess what? I did it when I had to.
Mm-hmm.
You do it. You're a coach of an NBA team. Like, figure it out.
That's why, even though it makes me kind of sick to say this, I would rather have Kevin Mchale. I would rather have Mark Jackson. I would rather have, and this one makes me want to throw up, Jason Kidd than another unproven assistant. Yeah. Give me somebody with any experience because we have a team that has none of it. We desperately need a head coach who knows what he's doing, even if he maybe isn't like the best. Give me somebody with experience for the love of God.
And the last thing is, I think Kokoshkov, I know the system. I don't know. It's not fair. He was never given the right players, but like he had his system. He didn't adapt his system to the players. He had a system and he tried to make the players fit into it as best he could, but it was like a square peg into a round hole. Like it just didn't work. So instead of adjusting, he just stayed with the system. And I wish we could have seen him make some, maybe he did eventually, but I know there was a lot of analysis of his pass heavy system. We didn't have a point guard to run it. You needed to adjust. You didn't. So
I feel like you're selling me on Mark Jackson because that'll get him out of the broadcast booth, which would be fantastic.
Down, man down.
I'd have to deal with him doing interviews on Phoenix radio, but all right, if he gets him out of the broadcast booth.
You know what? I've heard that some people have said Mark Jackson actually deserves some credit for Golden State's current success.
I think he does.
Because he really emphasized the defense.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between the Suns and the Golden State Warriors, the Steve Nash Suns and these? They played defense. We didn't. So, that's some credit.
Yeah, he made them a lot better defensively because he made them be more accountable. He wasn't a very good offensive coach, and that's why when Kerr came in, he took their defensive principles and then unlocked all their offensive potential in ways that he clearly couldn't. I mean, he had two of the best shooters of all time on that roster, and he only won 53 games that season. And you say only, but look what they've done since.
Yeah.
I find it frustrating. There's two things I'll say as we wrap this up here. One is, it is fascinating to me that on every level in this organization, we have no idea how good anybody is because everything is terrible. How good of a coach is Igor? I have no idea. He didn't really have the players to match his system. How good are half of the players on our roster besides Booker and Aiden? I have no idea. I really have no clue. You can isolate a lot of factors in other franchises that only have a few different mistakes because you can be like, okay, we added this player to a core that we already had, and it didn't work, so we can try something like this instead. This is just like throwing darts at a dartboard right now.
Yeah, and I mean, and the issue is how do we fix it? So, coach would be great. Who are we going for this year, realistically?
Who knows?
That's the question. Is free agent wise, we kind of touched on that already.
Yeah, you can't.
There's really not anybody out there that we're really going to make a huge splash with,
and we don't have any great trade assets.
Our biggest trade assets are somebody who wants to take a shot on Josh Jackson or thinks that T.J. Warren's a good bench player for them,
or a draft pick,
or our draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah.
If our draft pick falls out of the top two, that might be something we look to move. I just don't know because I don't think the draft is that great out of the top two. It's good, but I don't think there's going to be that player that helps us in the next 2 years there potentially. It's one of those things I don't want to over dramatize it, but I feel like there's a part of me that's saying like, man, if we don't get top two this year, I don't know when this is going to end.
It's fair.
And I hate that feeling.
Yeah. But it's sort of a feeling we were resigned to for a few years now, so I'm used to it. I take cold comfort in it.
Would you, just as the last question, would you rather get the number 1 or the number 2 pick?
Number 1.
Okay, just checking.
The idea, and I get where you're coming from, especially after what happened in last year's draft, where had we got number 2, we would have gotten Doncic, and hooray, everyone would have been happy.
Not even that so much, because I'm happy with Aiden, but there's like a small part of me that worries like Zion's a trap, and maybe I'm being foolish. But
Did you watch him a lot in college?
Yeah, he's not a trap.
I'm
I don't know
not sure.
how
He's
good he'll
amazing.
be. He is a guaranteed NBA career starter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a multiple-time All-Star. Maybe even like an MVP candidate.
If he can learn how to shoot, and he's not a great shooter, and that's his biggest weakness, I think, he will be unstoppable. He is a physical freak like I haven't seen before.
And what a good fit for the modern-day NBA.
Yeah.
Somebody of that size who can bully people down low and run the floor and pass and Jesus.
He can handle the ball just fine, and he's not a point guard, but he can hold his own handling the ball on the perimeter.
I'd be stunned if he didn't pan out. But you get the number 1 pick, and if you really, really want Morant instead, then you trade down a spot.
Yeah.
Get something else. You pull what Boston did a couple of years ago and get another high first rounder out of it just to go down a spot or two.
Yeah, but this isn't. I'm forgetting his name already from Washington.
Markelle Fultz.
Markelle Fultz. God, see, that's how
No, it's not
bad that was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the Suns season in a nutshell. The last thing I was going to say real quick was just coaches are stubborn. They have their system. They have their belief in what works, and a lot of times they refuse to change it, like Mike D'Antoni in New York. But sometimes they can turn it around, even though their personnel doesn't quite fit their system, like Mike D'Antoni in Houston. We'll never know if Igor had that level of capability in him because he's gone after one season. I have no idea. He may not have. I don't know. Again, it's all I don't know with this team. I don't know.
Yeah.
We just spent 70 minutes telling you we don't know. But that's where we're at. That's the most honest assessment of this fucking team.
Welcome to the Suns season, the team in a nutshell.
The last decade of the Suns, for the most part, really.
It takes commitment, and I hope the listeners that have made it this far respect that. It takes commitment to talk about a team that's been this bad for this long for 70 minutes. But we did.
But we do it for you.
And
Yes.
we do it for us too, because the three of us are. I don't think we're ever letting go ever.
No,
Hard
I
to
mean,
say
I don't
Wayne,
know
but
what it
man.
would. No, I mean,
2 or 3 more bad seasons than having to trade Booker because he gets disgruntled might do it.
I'd see if even for me, that wouldn't make me let go completely. It would make me lose a lot of interest. But the second, if they ever picked it back up, I'd be like, all right, this is my team since childhood. I'm still there.
I mean, that's
I
true
just
to an
got hurt by
extent.
them.
That would be enough to make me done until Sarver died or sold the team.
Great. I'll be 75 years old.
Because what reason do I have to be optimistic about that changing? And then people who think that's going to change, look at how much the Suns' value has risen in the last decade. He's
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Unless the league steps in and finds his handling of the franchise to be incompetent, which you can make a case for.
Yeah. Shaun,
He's not going.
Can you plant some sort of like racist tapes on him or something, like
Sure.
some sort of dirt to kick him out, Donald Sterling style?
yeah, I mean, yeah. Let me.
100%.
I mean, I know Robert Sarver pretty well, so
They hang out sometimes.
God, you know him more than I do because you saw him.
I
Yeah, you were close enough to hurt him once.
Yeah.
was.
Sure. Remember
Oh,
he had that other interaction with that other fan. Remember
Yeah.
that time that was recorded and he was an asshole?
I feel sorry for you. You only have $100.
Sigh. So that's Suns cast. I can't imagine a scenario where we do this again until it gets closer to the next season starting. Because, like, no matter what draft pick we get, if it's number 1, we're taking Zion. If it's number 2, we're taking Morant. And if it's number 3, I don't give a fuck. And if it's number 4, etc. So I can't imagine that moving the needle, but who knows? Maybe something crazy will happen or free agency will be cool, and that'll be enough. But in any case, it'll be it for a couple months at least. So
Yeah.
goodbye, Suns. We won't miss you very much. A little bit. Devin Booker, I love you. And
Come on
everybody
our show.
else.
Come join our show sometime, Devin. We'd love to have you.
Come talk your shitty franchise with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the end of the episode. In between shows, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media at Team Objection on Facebook and Twitter. It's objectionnetwork@gmail.com to send emails to the show. And finally, youtube.com/objectionnetwork is your home for 7-day-a-week videos. There's D&D, there's video games, there's this podcast, there's random videos of concerts from the worst seat in the house. How can you go wrong? See you next time.